Well, it's my favorite time to be in the garden, really nice and early before anybody else gets up. And today we're going to be looking at planting some of these gorgeous phlox. But you know, one of the great things about buying perennials during the growing season is that when you go into the garden center, you can pretty much see what the plants are going to look like. You can look at the various tags and check out the height and the light requirements, etc. But also what's really great is that you can take the plants, because they're grown in the pots, and you can set them down in various locations around your garden to just check to see how they're going to look at that area before you plant them. You can take it and put it next to other plants in the garden and see how they look compared to them. You can check them out in other spots and see what they would look like if you were to plant a group of them. You can check them out looking at them from a distance. Then when you've decided on the spot that you're going to plant them into, here's how you do it. And here's a checklist of the things you're going to need. Obviously, the first thing you're going to need are some plants. And in this case, it's a gorgeous compact growing form of the summer flowering phlox. Then, of course, you're going to need some digging implements. A good strong shovel. You're going to need a rake to rake back any mulch that you might have on the beds. And also a mattock. This is a valuable tool if you've got hard pan soil that you need to break through. Once it's planted, you're going to need to put down some mulch. And of course, because we're working in the summertime, don't forget about using some sun protection. And then, of course, you'll need some planting compost and perhaps a container of some sort to pick up any roots and rocks and any other debris you're going to discover under the ground. Now, you may have noticed that there's no fertilizer. That's because there is nutrient in the planting compost, but also because when we grow these plants, we use a special kind of fertilizer that means that they continue to receive nutrient long after the time that you've bought them and planted them. The number one objective now is to get these planted to establish a good strong root system in the ground, so that then, because these are perennials, they'll grow away nice and strongly next spring and of course in subsequent years too. Now, the first thing to do is to give them a really good watering. Make sure that they're nice and wet before you put them in the ground. Then, if you're planting in an existing bed, rake back some of the mulch that you might have already there. You might as well save that because it'll come in useful later on. Then, dig a hole that's twice as wide and 1.5 times the depth of the pot. Now, with perennials like these, it's important that you have good drainage in the bottom of the hole. So if the ground is a little hard or panned at the bottom, that's where you bring in the heavy artillery. You bring in the mattock and make sure to bust through that so that it's nice and loose and free draining. Then check the depth. Make sure that you've got enough room for the roots to be able to grow here. If you're in doubt, dig the hole a little bit bigger. You can't go too far wrong by digging it bigger rather than smaller. And then just make sure that you're going to be able to get the finished level when the plant is planted. So that looks pretty good to me. Then add some planting compost in the bottom of the hole and some in the soil that you're going to be using on the backfill. And then mix it all up in the bottom of the hole. Now, this is pretty important. You don't want to be having just straight compost in the bottom of the hole, so add a little bit of soil and mix it up so that you've got a really nice mix of the organic matter and the mineral soil, and that should make a really nice planting mix for the plants to go in. And then take it back to where we think the level is going to be. Should be somewhere about there. And double check the planting depth. Yep, that looks about right. Then remove the pot. Now, if you tip it up like this and just push down gently on the bottom of the pot, you'll find that it removes and comes off very easily. And then if you look here, you'll see that this has really got a beautiful root system. There's no need really to break this up because it's already growing nice. It's not pot bound, anything like that. So this is already, if it was pot bound, you would tease out some of these roots a little bit, and then you just simply put it in the center of the hole, making sure that you have it at about the same level, and then you can begin to backfill. And then it's just a matter of mixing up the compost with the parent soil that's here, and then putting that around the root ball of the plant. So mix it up again. You're getting a nice mixture of compost and soil, and that's important because that's the stuff that the roots will love to grow into. And then just backfill around the plant. If it looks a little bit on the low side, of which it does there, then you can simply reach in underneath and bring the plant up and raise it up a little bit, just to make sure that you've got it at the right level. And then just finish off putting the rest of the backfill around the plant. If there's any pieces of the soil that is kind of like this, a little on the clumpy side, you can just break that up and fill it around. And then finally, just go in and gently firm around the plant, making sure that there's good contact between the root ball and the soil that you've just backfilled. Now, what I like to do is to form a little reservoir, a little well around the plant, so that then when you water it, which is the next thing to do, is just give it a really good watering in here at the base of the plant. As you see, you're able to fill up that little reservoir and let it soak in all around the plant, and it will hold without running off down the hill. Then the next thing is to put down a good thick layer of mulch, probably about 2 inches or so deep, and that works wonders because it keeps the ground cool. It'll help to retain moisture while the roots grow underneath the ground, and of course it'll also help to suppress any weed growth that'll come from the soil that you just disturbed. And finally, give it another good watering. This will help to really get it off to a great start. Just fill up the little reservoir and let it soak in nice and slowly, and you can see the plant just going, ah. Now, as you can see, I've gone ahead and put the other plants in their places here. They should fill out and give me lots of colour here on the front of the border. They'll work very well with the existing phlox that are just beginning to flower, and of course contrast too with the ornamental grasses, the deciduous shrubs, and this blue cedar here in the background. And the best part about that is that the sun is only just coming up, and now it's time for breakfast. Darren, you're not supposed to be jumping up.